Hi, and welcome to the My Dog Made Me Do It Naturally podcast. I am your host, Kat Jepson, a canine nutritionist with an innate obsession with dogs and the natural ways in which we are driven to live because of them. So, let's get to it. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the My Dog Made Me Do It Naturally podcast. I am your host, Kat Jepson, and I am joined today by Danielle. Hi, Danielle.
Hi. Hello.
Hello. And Danielle is joining us from, where are you joining us from, Danielle?
Manchester.
Hey, hey. So Danielle is the loving dog mama to Chip and Kyla. And today we're going to be talking about their journey into the natural world, which involves feeding raw foods. So Danielle, to kick us off, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, Chip and Kyla?
Okay, so hi, I'm Danielle. And my dogs are Chip and Kyla. This is Kyla. Chip and Kyla are mum and son. And we've had Chip since being... Yeah, literally biological mum and son.
Wow.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Yeah. And we've had Chip since being a puppy, and then we ended up rescuing Kyla from my boyfriend's mum. Like a year ago now. So she's been with us just over a year.
Oh,
yeah.
You see, when I first met you on Instagram, I never thought you had Kyla, and then
we didn't.
Yeah, then all of a sudden Kyla started appearing in all the videos and things, and I was like, I'm sure they only had Chip before, but wow.
No, we did.
Oh, I never realized they were actually related. That's so sweet.
Yeah.
So what breed are they?
So Kyla is Staffordshire Bull Terrier and Chip is a Staffordor, so he's Staffy cross Labrador.
Yeah, okay. I thought he had a bit of lab in him. Yeah, he does look labby, doesn't he?
Yeah.
he's a chocolate Staffy.
He's very small though. Like Kyla's quite petite, and his dad was like small but stocky. So he's quite small. When people meet him, they're like, "Oh my god, he looks so much bigger in pictures." I'm like, "Yeah, he's small. Like, he's only a little boy."
He is cute though, and he's a cutie. He looks like he's a right goofball. Is he a goofball?
Yeah, he literally sat looking out the window.
Oh, bless him.
He's dead daft.
Oh, yeah, but that makes it so funny, doesn't it, when they've got their own little personality going on?
Oh, yeah.
And Kyla's just chill. She's just chill.
She just wants like cuddles all the time.
Oh, that's lovely. That's the best bit. That's the best bit.
Oh, yeah, but she's like a Klingon.
Oh, it's because she's a girl. That's why. Girls like the cuddles, but only on their terms, don't they? I think.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Oh, she's gone now.
Oh, bless her. So, for you, Chip and Kyla, what does your natural journey look like, and how did it start?
So when we got Chip as a puppy, like we were first time like dog owners. Like we've had family dogs before, but we've never had our own dog. And like I was aware of raw feeding from looking after like dogs for family, friends and stuff. So we wanted Chip on like a half kibble, half raw diet from the start, but we just started on kibble because that's what he was fed as a puppy. So then we ended up getting into, we give him like chicken wings when he was a puppy, and he used to eat everything, and then he started being really funny with his food.
Yeah.
So like he had blood in his poo a lot, and obviously like he was a puppy and he'd go off his food, he wouldn't eat, so obviously that was really stressful for us, and we was constantly at the vets, and they just kept giving us like, you know, the paste, like the probiotic paste for his poo.
Yeah
and like that would help, but then like every so often it was like a month or something, we'd start a new food, a new kibble, and then he would just stop eating it and he'd have blood in his poo again. So we were like, right, do you know what, like we wanted to do raw, let's just switch now while he's young, and just went straight onto a raw diet from kibble, and then we had no problems since then.
So was it the kibble that was making his stomach upset then, do you think?
We're not too sure if it was like the kibble, but what we've seemed to like come to understand is that Chip seems to have a sensitive stomach.
Right, okay, yeah.
Because Kyla's fed like a fresh food as well as the raw food, because we noticed when we got her she wasn't doing as well as Chip did on the raw straight off.
Yeah.
And when Chip gets a bit of the fresh food in, it literally makes him vomit.
Oh, does it?
Chip literally gets meat and supplements. Like any vegetables, I have to prepare them myself, otherwise it'll make him vomit if it's come from like anything else. So I don't know We don't know what it is specifically, but we know that he does well on his raw food, and that's just how we'll keep him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's very tough because I know even when you do buy like a high quality prepared fresh food from a supplier rather than making it in your own kitchen, you're still not fully aware of the ingredients that are going in there, and it might only have like a list of maybe what, like 7 to 10 fresh ingredients, which is fine, but even so these can have their problems. Like the ratios might be off for like what he can tolerate, and you don't know where they're sourcing those ingredients. Like it might be salmon oil, but it might be a really cheap salmon oil that they buy in bulk, which obviously has the risk of being rancid before your dog even eats it. So it could be like a number of things, which I mean, I think that is one of the benefits of when you do prepare the meals yourself fully from home, that you can basically have that control. And more dogs seem to present with these GI issues more frequently now, and it's just one of those things, I think. But thankfully, you've found how to navigate it and manage to come out on top. So Kyla is fed fresh food. So is that like cooked food?
So she's fed butternut box.
Oh, yes, the butternut box is cooked. Yeah.
So we were, like, when we first got Kyla, she was fed kibble in a previous home, and we just switched her straight to raw when she got here. Obviously, when we switched Chip from kibble to raw, we saw all these improvements because Chip was doing so bad. But with Kyla, like, we didn't really seem to see any of that. And I was like, I don't think raw food 100% is what's best for her. So we were thinking about obviously switching up and adding a bit of fresh food in. And then we were at an event and butternut box were there, and there was a lady that we knew working on the store. So my boyfriend went off and chatted with her while I was with Chip doing something. And then at the end he was like, oh, come and speak to butternut box, like we've been thinking about it anyway. So just spoke to this lady, and she managed to get us a deal on butternut box, and we tried it and she likes it. So we just like stuck with it. She doesn't get a full meal of butternut box. It's literally like 50 grams butternut box and 100 grams raw. So she's still getting mainly raw food. It's just that added extra, and with her being a senior dog, she kind of needs a bit more anyway. Well, I mean, if that's what works, that's what works. And also you've got to think about what budget allows as well, isn't it? So you've got to kind of juggle everything in between. So, and I really like it that when I meet other pet parents who actually are willing to do different diets for their dogs in their household, because like I think sometimes we can fall into this habit of, well, just give them the same food because they have the same needs, because they're dogs basically at the end of the day, which they're not. They're individuals, aren't they? So I do love it when when this, like we get these dogs to have as our pets, and then we find ourselves doing more and more and more to try and satisfy their needs. But no, it's great because then it just makes me feel like that I'm not the only one doing all this mad stuff in the kitchen. No, we're all here.
So where has your natural journey taken you personally? So like, what have you learned from starting this natural feeding journey with your dogs, and how has it changed your life?
I think I look at things a lot differently now. Like, I try and actually figure out what's in food. Like, we eat a lot of like stuff that we cook at home ourselves anyway. But just more like, like assessing what's in things, and like, and I obviously I had family dogs before I got Chip and Kyla, and I just used to buy them whatever off the supermarket shelves. Whereas now, like, I literally look in the ingredients and I'm like, nope, like only the best for my two. So like, don't get me wrong, like I'll pick up a couple of cheap packets every now and again. Like, do like it, so it's not that big of a deal. But obviously, if they can have better stuff, then I'm gonna give them better. Just like assess things more.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with that. But sometimes it can be so annoying, don't you think? Like when you're walking around the supermarket and something looks really nice and you pick it up, and then you actually do look at the back of the packet, and then instantly your mind is like, nah, not going to buy that.
But it stresses me out more because I'm just like, how many people are buying this? Like, I just want to like take it off the shelf so they can't get it. Like, no.
I'm right there with you. And it is so frustrating that I feel like
in this world that we are submerged in on Instagram, with raw and natural feeding or like home cooking for dogs and stuff. I mean, I think it's around about 25% of people in the UK feed their dogs raw food. So that means 75% are still left either not knowing about raw food or not understanding the benefits, or even fresh food. And like the majority of people are still feeding highly processed foods. And sometimes I just wonder, like, how is this still the norm?
That is correct. I didn't know it was like so little. Like Kyla's
I think it is. I think it's around 25%. And I know like a couple of years ago it was 20%. So it is slowly creeping up, obviously, because everybody's shouting from the rooftops about it now. But it's just I think when we've been sort of in this world for as long as we have, which is, well, at least for me, I've been in this world for about 7-8 years. So how long have you?
3 years.
Yeah. So that's probably around about the time that I met you, wasn't it? When we were off at nature. And it just feels like this is what is like everybody knows. You just forget that there are other people out there who don't know and who have still to discover this fascinating world of raw and natural feeding for dogs.
Yeah, definitely. I think some people think it's so weird, don't they? Because I was like, I went to see my family dogs not too long ago, like not last week, the week before. And they're on kibble food, and I was just like, oh, like we raw feed ours, and my stepdad was just like, no, and I was like, oh, but they need it.
It's good for them. Oh, I know, and it's like even now when I sort of like tell people, when you meet new people and like they ask, you know, what do you do for a living, and well, I advocate for fresh feeding for dogs, and they look at me like I'm some kind of really. Like, that's a job. Are you kidding? And I'm like, yeah, you know, it is. You shouldn't be, you know, you should make more of an effort with your dog's food. But some people are just so, I don't know what it is.
Stuck in the ways, isn't it?
Yeah. And we have got a lot of work to do if we're going to make some waves, you know. And it's already happening with a lot of the things that, you know, the leaders of the raw food movement are doing, and every day. So if we all just keep chipping away, eventually we might make it back. Yeah. Good. Hopefully. Good. So I feel like we went off on a bit of a tangent there, didn't we? Okay, so on your natural journey with Chip and Kyla, what have been the downfalls or struggles that you have faced?
I do think there is a lot of, I don't know what you would call it. Like one thing tells you one thing and another tells you something completely different.
Yeah, so it's contradictory information.
Yeah, that's the one. So, just Chip's a very fussy dog, which is crazy to think because he's obviously half Labrador, and Labrador's known for eating everything, but not this one. So it's been really hard to navigate everything with Chip alone because he is so fussy. Like, we tried like chunks, he won't touch it. Like he's just really fussy like that. So he'll literally only eat mince. Yeah. So we just buy minces, whereas Kyla would eat anything. But Chip is super, super fussy. Like if we find something Chip likes, we buy it in bulk. And then like 2 months down the line, he decides he doesn't like it anymore. So it's really hard to navigate with Chip, and obviously having such a fussy dog means that I can't follow like the rules that everybody else does. So I just kind of do my own thing and what works for us. So,
Well, it can be difficult. I mean, picky eaters, fussy dogs, it's just a nightmare, and it tends to be one of the things that puts people off from changing diets, because like the thing with dogs is that, I mean, so has Chip always been? Was he on full kibble before he came to you?
Yeah, he was on full kibble as a puppy. And then we had him on full kibble for like, I think it was like six months maybe. I can't remember like specific times. So obviously it all just kind of like blends in, and I kind of forget like the really bad bits, whereas my boyfriend remembers a lot more of it. Like I just pick out the good parts, obviously. But I remember like the blood in his poo was obviously a bit traumatizing for us both, and like we both analyze poos all the time. Like I'm like, oh, this poo's a bit runny. Like I never thought I'd be analysing dog poo, but here we are.
It's got to be done. It's got to be done. If you're not willing to analyse poo, then don't get dogs. Simple.
I don't have babies either.
Oh yeah, please.
But no, yeah.
Well, we're just thinking, you know, because like with dogs, they do form preferences for food, and especially when they're puppies. So like whatever they eat when they're young is gonna dictate what they like throughout their life. So if you know you do get a puppy that is fed processed foods, then it is going to be likely or highly likely that your
I didn't
puppy
know that.
is going to want that kind of food. But it's just like us, like, you know, kibble, highly processed pet foods are sort of, they're filled with chemical preservatives and they're coated in saturated fats and, you know, palletizers, which make them addictive to dogs, which is why you might think that your dog really likes it, but it's not necessarily that. It's because they're so addicted to it because of the high salt content and, you know, all the rancid fats that are sprayed on afterwards to make it actually palatable for them to eat. But being said, so if they form this, you know, positive association with this kind of food when they're a puppy, then that's why you try and transition them later on, that they can be a bit fussy about it. And that can come like, that happens like with textures and tastes and various different things. So it definitely is sort of like a long and drawn out process with your dog transitioning them if they have obviously, you know, been on this food, especially for a long time as well. So if you sort of like get a senior dog who's been on kibble all their life till, I don't know, they're about 10 years old, and then you put them onto raw, some dogs will just happily eat anything, as you know, but others, it could take, you know, 6 months to a year to transition them over if they are that picky. And that could even be,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. I think because, you know, you just expect dogs to eat everything, don't you? Because that's what dogs do. Like in the wild.
Chip, when he was a baby, like I would literally put like, I would go and prepare mash, like boiled potatoes and carrots and put them in mash. And then like I would chop up carrots, he would eat like everything. And then it just stopped. He just stopped eating fruit and veg altogether. If there was in like chunks in his food, if it was in mash, like we really struggled to get fruit and veggies in him.
Yeah,
but as a puppy, he would eat everything.
If he has got a bit of, you know, if he's got a bit of disruption going off in his gut, that might be his way of sort of like self-medicating to say, you know, that vegetable makes me feel poorly, so I'm going to leave it out. But it depending who you ask as well, veggies, you know, aren't always necessarily included within the diet. You know, some raw feeders don't feed any fruits or vegetables at all. They just literally feed.
I didn't know that. They're my people.
Yeah, so it's the prey model and the Franken prey model. So the idea is that you feed them a whole animal, and if they do get any vegetation, it comes from the stomach contents of that animal. Which would be really small because it would be a small animal from the wild, such as like a quail or a rabbit, or, you know, like, I mean, I think wild dogs even eat frogs and stuff. So, but so if you, with those two raw feeding models, they are literally sort of like, they are an 80-10-10 split. Roughly, if you're feeding a whole animal, then obviously it varies depending on the animal. But the idea is that this full animal, so say you feed a whole rabbit, that is the complete meal needed for the dog. So it's got all the raw meaty bones, it's got all the organ meats, which are like really nutrient dense, and then it's got the fur, which is the fiber, which in other raw feeding models would be your fruits and vegetables, because that's what, you know, you add them as a fiber. And then the Franken prey is the idea that you use sort of like different parts of an animal to make up the full animal. So rather than feeding like a whole rabbit, you'd use like a duck head with some gizzards and then some sort of like breast meat, and then you might have some wings for the raw meaty bones, and then you'd have like liver and kidney as the organ meats. Do you know what I mean? So it's sort of like you piece
like
together,
a DIY.
Yeah, you'd piece together the whole, like using different pieces of the animal to get that split between the nutrients. And again, that doesn't have any fruits and veggies in there because you would use the fur or feathers to feed that fiber, which would help the gut. So I mean, depending on what kind of philosophy you follow and what kind of raw feeding style you want to choose, it's completely up to you if you put veggies in there. So, you know.
I didn't know. I've not really researched it, to be fair, though, that much because obviously Chippy is so fuzzy, I just literally feed him what he'll eat.
Yeah.
Because I know if he's not feeling well and I know if he's not doing so well on his food. So I always just think, you know, if he's eating it, then that's okay. Like, I've not really researched anything like that, but I didn't know that there was raw feeders out there who don't do fruit and veggies. I just thought,
oh yeah, there is. Like the bath diet is the one that has, obviously, the bath diet goes into detail with the different ratios of fruits, nuts, and vegetables. And then there's the ancestral model, which has fish in it as well. And then it has like 5% fiber, which is either fur, feathers, or fruits and vegetables, but just like low glycemic vegetables. So it just depends on which model you want to follow. And you don't even have to follow the same model all the time if you don't want. You know, it's completely up to you. It's your dog. As long as you get in the raw meaty bones, the liver, especially for, obviously, it's because the liver's like the multivitamin, and then the other organ meats and some fiber and the muscle meats, then, you know, that's absolutely fine. So if that's what Chip will eat, then hey ho, why not?
Yeah.
It's just everybody just gets so, you know, like complicated with all this. Oh,
you can just get really weighed down with it, though, can't you?
Yeah, it is. It's frustrating. It's frustrating because, like you say, it puts a lot of people off, and it puts people off talking about it as well. And like you say, you just get overwhelmed, and you just think, oh, what am I even doing? You know?
Yeah, definitely.
What even is this? But that's why we're here. That's why we have these conversations, so that we can help.
Absolutely.
So, well, my next question was going to be what works for you, but we've just covered that with how you feel.
Just raw food.
Raw food. So, what would you say is the best thing about your raw and natural feeding journey? What's been the best thing that you've learned or that you've experienced?
I think like I get a lot of people asking us about raw feeding. And I always just say, like, oh, I'm not the best person to ask because Chip is so fussy. But I like that people come to us and ask. Like, I like that people feel comfortable they can do that, because I think sometimes you just feel like you can't ask people. And like there is like a little network around raw feeding. Obviously, I've made friends through, like, you know, your business, like Perfect Nature and Puppy Chop. So it's just nice to have. There's like a community of people, and it's just like some people can turn their noses up at raw feeding, and I get that it's not the prettiest of things, but it's nice to have like a support network.
Yeah, it is. And every single person that I speak to on these podcasts always basically shouts about how useful and positive social media has been for their journey in terms of support. And we've talked about a variety of different topics already on this show, and social media always comes into play. But to be honest, you know, social media is how I meet all of you as well. So without it, we would be stumped. Just think, who knows what we'd be feeling on social media. Oh, dearie me. What about supplements then? Do you feed any supplements to them?
Yeah, like I'm not 100% clued up on supplements, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm still learning as we go on, and you know, like things come up in the dogs. Like Kyla recently got spayed. So I was like, oh, is there anything I can, you know, buy in to help? And someone recommended milk thistle, which I've never heard of. But like they said, oh, it's good to help, you know, get rid of all the chemicals in the body. So I was like, great. So I got some of that in, and then it came like a week after a spay, and I was like, oh, I'm still gonna throw it in anyway. But apparently it's good for liver.
Yes, it is a detoxifier for the liver. It is sort of like milk thistle is the liver herb, so it's got an affinity for the liver. It helps to flush it from the toxins, and it also like gives it that support. So like if they do have had some chemical sort of like treatment, obviously being under from the spay or like flea or worm or anything like that, then a little bit of additional support with milk thistle will definitely help to flush it out. I mean, even if you've got a dog that's on long-term medication, then it is beneficial to use herbs like milk thistle just to help the liver function properly, if that makes sense, because obviously you don't want it to be under too much stress. But even though it is just like a week after, or if it did come a week after, then you can still feed. I'd still chuck it in every now and then anyway, because
I do that. I like to rotate like what we've got in, and supplements are expensive, so I don't like to just like bang it in all the time. Like, I know it's good to use some of them like daily, but I'm just like, do you know what, like, no.
Well, actually, unless you've got like a long-term medical need which warrants that the use of that like supplement, depending what it is. I'm guessing you mean like herbs and stuff, yeah? Then
like pumpkin powder and stuff like that.
Yeah, so whole food supplements rather than like, you know, these like tablets and stuff. But
Yeah.
then it is always better to rotate, because then it sort of like gives the body a rest from whatever chemical reactions it's been doing with that supplement, and then it focuses on something else, because each different supplement has a different beneficial effect for the body and all its systems. So if you're just giving it the same thing every time, then only those systems that supplement helps are sort of like getting a chance to work with it. And then you've got loads of other functions and, you know, places that need repairing that are probably going to miss out, which would benefit from a different set of supplements. So you do right to rotate. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, I didn't know that until recently, to be fair. So I've started rotating the supplements a lot more. So like if we do a big walk, which like we do a big walk on a weekend normally, like we go and meet our friends and we go on like a, you know, like a nice big wander. I give them like turmeric and like joint stuff after that, and then like after like either that night time or like the day after I stop that, then just because I'm like give them a chance to like recover from the walk. And then, especially with Kyla being older, like I wanna keep you alive for as long as we can.
Oh,
so yeah, I definitely rotate them a lot more, and it also helps with obviously the cost of supplements if you're not using them all the time.
Yeah, it definitely does, because I mean there are some weird and wonderful things available now, which I mean for humans as well as dogs. But I think, you know, there's this thing as well where humans discover a superfood and they bring it out and sell it for people, and then they realize that they can sell it for dogs, so they put it in a different packet and stick loads of money on top of it, and it's so annoying. But then all these pet parents out there are like sat there thinking, well, I can't get that one because that's for people.
Me.
And then I need to get the dog version because it says it's for dogs, even though it's exactly the same thing.
There was like spirulina in the supermarket on offer the other day, and I was like, can the dogs have that one? Like it's so hard to navigate. Like I'm still not 100% clued up. I don't know. I just wing it.
You're not on your own. You're not on your own. This is how they do it. This is how they make their money out of you, because they put it in a packet and stick a dog on the front as if to say, right, this is a spirulina for people and this is a spirulina for dogs, when it's probably been packaged in the same bloody factory. You know what I mean? And sent out. So, you know, if it is a whole food supplement and it is 100% of that ingredient in that packet, so spirulina, for example, if it's 100% spirulina, then your dog can have it if it is dog safe. If it's sometimes human supplements might have other additives in there, or like I can't think of a supplement, but for example, some peanut butters have xylitol or xylitol, however you say it, in them, which obviously you wouldn't be able to feed that to your dog because xylitol is toxic for your dog. But in supplement form, if it's 100% that whole food in that packet and you know it's dog safe, by all means get the human version, because 10 times, you know, it's going to be 10 times cheaper most of the time. Even probiotics and things like that. I think a lot of the human probiotics, they do have a lot more different species in, but the majority of what species live in the human gut are what live in the dog's gut anyway. So you don't always have to buy just the dog-friendly probiotics either. This is another problem with the canine nutrition industry, I think. So if you're ever confused, though, just send me a message.
No, I definitely do. I come to you all the time. But no, I like to. So supplement-wise, like, we've had fleas in the past on, like flea, you know, medication from the vets and stuff. And obviously with the more natural, like I'm trying to move away from all the chemical stuff. So I'm not a big fan of it anyway. Like I personally haven't had the COVID vaccinations. Like I'm not a big fan of things like that. So obviously I don't want them on, like, I know the flea tablets as well are like worse than the spot on, aren't they? So yeah, we've moved away from like chemical things like that. So we used Billy No Mates last year. After having fleas the previous year on different products, and that worked really well. We didn't seem to have fleas last year, so I'm definitely sticking with that for fleas now. And like when I see different like supplements in like the raw food shops, obviously I either ask what it's about or I just pick it up and then Google it later or something. But I'm just like, it's only going to do good for the dogs. Like So I just pick it up. Like bee pollen, found out through you for allergies because they both struggle with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like a spring staple now. So we just add in all sorts, and I didn't know that seeds had to be ground up until recently. So I was feeding like whole seeds and not too long ago, but my boyfriend actually loves grinding the seeds up. So sometimes I'll just like, there you go, and he'll just grind up seeds for me. It's great.
This is the thing though, isn't it? I think there's all these little tips and tricks, and unless you know, then you don't know. And it's like, it's such a simple thing that how were you supposed to know that your dog can't digest full seeds? Like, nowhere tells you that unless you sort of like see it on social media. So these are the all important things that, you know, we need to kind of get out there with when we're telling people to feed supplements and homemade diets and things like that. It's just all the little tips and tricks that are missing from mainstream media.
It is.
Because it's just like throwing money down the drain as well, isn't it? Like,
oh yeah, like you think you're doing good and then it's just coming out in the poo.
Oh, bless you. Well, you know, you've been having a real good go though, and ever since I've known you, you've always put your all in for Chip, and obviously Kyla when she came along. So I think we've had many conversations over Instagram, haven't we, about different supplements and different ways that you can support them. So it's actually great to be able to chat to you about it all today, because sometimes Instagram's so busy. Like,
I'm taking a break at the minute. I've got so much work. I'm just like, I've got time to be on my phone at the minute. Like, I'm not doing it.
Well, it's good for everybody to have a social media break every now and then.
Oh, it is. So. It's so nice. Good girl.
Right. So, is there anything that you would say to other pet parents who may be struggling with either like going natural or starting their fresh feeding journey?
Oh, I've been waiting for this one. So because I struggle with a fussy pup and I get people asking me about obviously raw feeding and stuff, I'm literally just like, listen, if your dog's happy and healthy and they're eating the food, jobs are good. And like, obviously there's stuff you can add in, and if you've got like specific problems, then obviously that needs addressing. But if any, I don't know. Like, I really struggle with Chip. Like, I would absolutely love to do a DIY bowls, you know, like, you know, with all the fur and the big chunks of meat. But Chip, I know Chip wouldn't touch it. She probably would. She eats anything, but Chip he would turn his nose up. And and we only live in a little flat anyway, so we have 2 freezers now, and both have got dog stuff in. It was only one drawer in one freezer, but now it's taken over. So obviously storage of frozen stuff isn't like an issue. It's not an issue, but we would like a chest freezer to shove everything in. But no, for anyone who's looking to do it, I'd probably just say like take the jump. Like, it is confusing, but as long as your dog's eating the stuff and, you know, everything's working well with inside them, then go for it.
Yeah, good. I love that. That's great. Don't complicate things. This is it.
No,
it's like everybody makes it out that it's so difficult to, like, you know, just put some food in a bowl for your dog, and it's really not. It's really not difficult. You just got to have a loose set of guidelines, which is basically what you need to make sure you put in the bowl. So you could basically have your 5 ingredients, which is your raw meat, your bones, your muscle meats, your organ meats, which is your liver and your other secreting organ, and then a bit of seafood if you're following the ancestral diet, and then your fiber, which is either your fur and your feathers or your fruits and vegetables. As long as you get those ratios sort of all right, that's all you need. And then obviously everybody likes to bang on about how homemade diets are deficient in certain nutrients. Well, we've got a list of all the foods that you can add every now and then to bump up those nutrients. So you just need those 2 lists, don't you? That's it. Yeah. As long as you're giving a good mix and rotating, then you should be fine. And just Chip eat sort of like hairy rabbit ears treats.
He likes to play with it before he eats it, which is really hard work now having Kyla, because before when we just had Chip, like we could play with it, throw it around, do it. Like, he will literally throw things at you. Like, it's quite funny really, because obviously he's a dog. But yeah, no, so she'll eat hers in like 2 seconds flat, and then she wants his. And we're like, no, you can't. But then we're like throwing this rabbit treat around, and she wants it, and he's just like, play with me.
Bless him.
He will eat it, but eventually, like when it was just Chip, we used to have a lot of natural treats just lying around, because he'd have a nibble and then leave it for a bit and then go back to it. Like we have obviously a lot of natural chews, so their chews they just stay down for whenever they want to chew. But like natural treats like the rabbit ears and stuff like that, we keep in the kitchen, obviously in a tub. So they just get one of them every so often. Like, I don't really have a set routine with the dogs. They just get whatever whenever.
No, that's fine. I'm only saying because that's how you can get his fur into him, is by giving him the furry treats.
Yeah.
You know, he won't eat it in the bowl. But you can actually get raw furry rabbit's ears, which
I've seen loads of stuff like that now.
I'm gonna get some. I think I haven't had them yet, but I'm tempted to get some. But the Dog's Butcher do a minced rabbit which has fur in it. And it's basically like a whole rabbit which has been put through the mincer, and it is really
that's
good.
really good.
It's got the fur in there, and it's sort of like the whole prey model, you know, because it's just like the rabbit.
Because I like to like obviously save money. Like who doesn't? So you know, like when in little treat bags when you get all the bits at the bottom. Like I remember like live sales and stuff, you usually get a mixed bag. There'd always be like little bits in the bottom. I'd always just keep that and put it in the food. Like
Definitely.
I know that he'll eat it if it's in his bowl and it's little. So any crumbs or anything straight in the bowl.
Definitely, you can't be wasting precious nutrients.
No, absolutely not. If it's going to get it into chip, it's going in.
Well, it's sort of like one of those cheeky little toppers, isn't it? To sort of like get him, entice him into it and make him eat it.
Oh yeah, because sometimes, like especially in the summer, chip can be really funny with his eating. Anyway, it's very hit and miss. Like we used to go to the vets a lot, obviously, when he would go off his food, and it would go like a week without food, and the vet's like, oh yeah, like 3 days is normal without food. I'm just like, I don't want him going without food for 3 days. Like he will fast himself sometimes, and we've obviously had to learn that that's just what he does sometimes. But you can get a lot of toppers now, so if he's not eating, then we'll always like go over but do it in his face so that he knows the topper's there. Like, oh yeah, go on, have a try now.
Otherwise he won't even look at it because he's like, I don't want
he's like, oh, and then she wants to know what's going on with his food after she's eaten hers.
No, that's the thing though, isn't it? My two are like that. Like, well, lately since we started doing loads more DIY, Boris is like really enthusiastic about his food, whereas before he used to be a bit like, sound a bit like Chip. Like sometimes he'd be, I don't really want that today.
Yeah.
But I found I was with certain proteins. So sort of like if it was a particular protein like beef, like he's not really that fond of beef. Especially beef heart. So like if it's like the thing is as well, like if you're getting like an 80-10-10 mix, this is another thing that annoys me. It says 80-10-10, but the 10% could be a mixture of various different organ meats, and sometimes companies include heart meat and lung meat in the organ section, and sometimes they include it in the muscle meat section. Whereas when you're raw feeding, heart and lung is classed as muscle meat. So for organ meats, you're looking at things like liver, pancreas, kidney, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it needs to be at least 5% liver, and then 5% other secreting organ. But anyway, that's a different issue. But sometimes you get like a pheasant 80-10-10, which the 80 and the 10 meat and bone is pheasant, but then the 10% organ meat comes from beef.
Yeah.
So it's not actually
everything's like
pheasant,
hidden, isn't it?
Yeah. So like I was finding that I was thinking I was giving him a pheasant mix. I don't know if it was pheasant. I'm just saying it, you know, for that sake. And then it had beef organs in it, and he wouldn't eat it because he doesn't like beef spleen or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Sometimes
I've never thought about that, but he does. There are certain flavors that he's not a big fan of. Like he'll eat it, but you just know that he's not 100%. Like he's not the biggest fan of it.
Yeah. I'd maybe just really scrutinize those labels and see if you can find out, because sometimes it doesn't even say that it is from a cow or like a different animal. It's sort of like, I don't know, it's just weird trickery with labels and pet food. It's one of those things. So I had to find that that is the reason why I do DIY now, because I just don't trust any of the bloody labels anymore.
Yeah, no, I get that.
And now he just constantly. But another thing as well, like if he won't eat organ meats, is just you get a dehydrator and dehydrate them because dogs.
So we've got an air fryer, and we've had the air fryer now about 6 months. And Maggie's mum, who was also on the podcast, she dehydrates like organ meats and stuff. And I picked up some hearts reduced in Tesco one day because I've seen a reel about it anyway on I think Be More Dog, and so I just picked him up and I was like, oh, I'll just give this dehydrating a go because I know that Chip's fussy, and I was like, if he doesn't eat it, he doesn't eat it. Kyla will eat it. So obviously, like I brought him home and I asked Megan, Maggie's mum, I was like, oh, like what do I do with these? And she was like, oh, are you keeping them whole or are you chopping them up? And I was like, well, if it's going to be quicker, I'll chop them up. Like, I'm not bothered. So she was like, oh yeah, like I think it's like 60 degrees for like 3 hours or something. So I know now because I've tried it again with different ones. So I tried them with the raw heart anyway, and Kyla ate it and Chip didn't, which isn't a surprise. So I was like, right, okay, so we'll give the dehydrating a go. So I dehydrated it, and then Chip would eat it, and I was like, oh my god, he's just eating a heart. I never thought Chip would do that. So then we picked up like kidney, and they've had liver now. So we tried it raw, and there's only like, if it's like ox, he'll eat it raw, but if it's like, we had like pig livers, he wouldn't eat that raw. She would. And then we dehydrate it, and then they both eat it. So
this is it.
It's really fun. I'm like learning. It's great, and I'm doing it all myself.
Yeah, you're doing little mini experiments. I love it.
And then I use it as training treats, and that's even better.
Exactly. This is it, you see. And I mean, I'm not being funny about it, but how cheap is organ meat in the supermarket?
Really, it is really cheap. It's like £2.
Exactly. And if you get it in the reduced section as well,
that's a
double whammy.
It was like £2 for two. They were big hearts. I know they were big hearts now because I bought them again and they were smaller and they weren't reduced. So I was fuming. I know, but it was like a science experiment cutting them up as well. I felt like I was back in science in school. Like it was a bit gross, but it's like intriguing.
Well, one tip I have for organ meats is put them in the freezer so they're sort of like semi-frozen, and then slice them because they don't move. They're not squishy. And they don't leak.
I don't
leak as well. Well, I know, but sometimes it depends how long my nails are. If I've got long nails and they start sticking into the
going
liver,
underneath. Yeah. Also, I'm not a big fan of liver. I was like, Tristan, you can do that.
Yeah, that's the worst one, I think. But part freezing them, and then the knife goes straight through, and it's a nice firm chunk of meat. So the only thing is, obviously, then the juices come out when they defrost a bit. But if you are putting them in the dehydrator, then. But yeah, that's fascinating. Also, as well, if they won't eat them in chunks, you can just grate it up because it's dry. Grate it up into a powder and use it as a topper to mix through. There's loads you can do.
Yes, I'm quite a lazy dog mum now. I'm quite a lazy girl. I don't do things like that. So the dehydrating in the air fryer, that's like a big step for me.
Well, I'm going to say that is, that's not being a lazy dog mama. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I'm a dog
now
for a
you've
while,
done it though. And now you've done it though. Like, how simple is it?
Yeah, it's very simple, and it's so good to know that, like, because we do, Chip will only have, if we're training something that's good, like obviously recall, he needs a high value training treat, like, because he is so fussy. If it's a standard, like, like a little like kibble, basically, he'll just spit it out.
Yeah,
like he's not bothered. Like he'll do whatever he wants to do. Yeah, over the treat. Like he's just like, no, I'm not. You're not bribing me with that. But no, like to take it out as a training treat as well. Like to say that it's something you've done yourself. Like I know what's in that. I've literally prepared it, and now it's in a treat bag. Like it's dead nice to know.
It is, because as well, like you get all these like meat strips and stuff, and it says 100% meat, but you still don't really know what's in it because it's not obviously a piece of meat. It's sort of like something that's been ground up and smushed together and smeared on a tray. So, and the thing is as well, like you can pay up to £5 for like 100 grams of these dehydrated meaty treats, and like organ meats might be a little bit more if you buy them from a treat shop. But you go to the supermarket and you get like 500 grams for like £2. And fair enough, you end up with a lot lighter weight when it's obviously when it's dehydrated, because the moisture comes out of it, and most of it does. But still, you still get a really big bag full of treats which costs you like £2 rather than a £5, and you're probably going to have
much you cut them up.
Well, it does, and they do shrink obviously when the moisture comes out of them, but you still end up with a nice big bag of treats. It's just so more cost effective, and even though you have to use an appliance to dehydrate them, the cost of running that appliance to get them to that moisture content is going to be sort of like pennies.
But to have the knowledge as well that it's just 100% what it is.
It gives you that peace of mind as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. Oh, well, that's good. So, following that, do you have any plans for the future on your fresh feeding journey?
Well, obviously, the dehydrating of the treats and chip eating, like organ meats, is a massive thing for us in terms of chip and fish. We're constantly trying to get fish in him. So he goes through phases with sprats. We used to use sprats as training treats. Now you won't touch them. So we constantly try with different things. Like she'll eat anything, so it's easy with her. But I've bought green-lit mussels in like a tin, which I'm nervous to use. I've had them in 2 months now, and they're just sat in the fridge because I'm just like, if I put it in his food, I know he's not going to eat it. Like I had the dehydrated ones that you buy from places. That's like £7 for a packet. They're not cheap. I have to cut them up with the scissors into his food so that he'll eat them. He won't eat it whole. So obviously having the the hydrated version, and I know that they're quite big, aren't they, the mussels? So I'm just like, I want to give him the opportunity, obviously, to try it, but I just know that I'm gonna have to, mince it or something. And I was speaking to my boyfriend about it, and I was like, I'm worried about the smell. Like, obviously,
is it sort of is it those that are in a tin, like you'd get like tin sardines?
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah. It's not from the supermarket. It's from like a dog shop.
Is it the Kanumi ones?
Yeah, it's like Kanumi. Yeah.
They're cooked. They're gently cooked them, so he might eat them. I don't know. Does he eat? Does he eat
it's
sardines
more
out
if
of
he
a
can
tin?
see it. No, I don't think he's ever had sardines out of a tin.
Oh, I'm gonna say
he's very fussy.
Oh,
yeah. Fish is a really hard one that we're trying to crack with him. So. Well,
Barney, one of mine, Barney, he will eat absolutely anything you give to him, except funnily enough, if you drop an onion on the floor, he won't eat it. It's like he knows which foods are toxic to him.
Yeah.
Some dogs eat absolutely everything, don't they? But Boris, when we first started him with fish, he was like that. He won't eat fish mince or anything like that. I'd never get them fish-based meals because they just won't eat.
Yeah.
Well, Barney can't tolerate him anyway because his stomach's too sensitive. But Boris, I started by giving him sardines and mackerel out of a tin because they're gently cooked and he likes them. And then I moved them on to raw fish like sprats and mackerel, and he eats them now. But the green-lit mussels from Kanumi are cooked, and to be fair, you could probably squash it with a fork, and mush it in.
Oh, could you? Oh, right, okay. I didn't know how firm they were going to be. I've never felt one.
Because it's just meat. It's just cooked meat. It's like a sardine out of a tin. So you could mush it up and mix it in with his mince, and it might eat it. But if not, stick them in the dehydrator.
Yeah, and then chop it up into his meal.
Yeah, but those tins aren't cheap either, are they? The tins of green-lit mussel.
It's £4. It's not too bad. I don't know. I've literally not opened it. I don't know how many you get, but they do other flavours as well, don't they? So I've got a couple others to try. But it's just the worry of trying something new and knowing he's going to turn his nose up at it.
Oh,
well,
you
never
never
get
know.
it in him.
He might surprise you.
Well, I started blending fruits and veggies into yogurt this summer. He loves yogurt, so if I can get anything into a yogurt, it'll go down.
Put the green-lit mussel into yogurt.
It
sounds gross. It sounds gross, but you might like it. Oh, the things we do for our dogs, eh?
Honestly.
Oh, right. So, do you have any plans for Kyla? Don't think you really she'll eat out, won't she? So
yeah, she will. We don't actually know how old she is. We just know that she's 8 or 9 or 10.
Yeah.
So it's more just trying to prolong her life and make sure that she's comfortable and we look after everything and she's getting older. So the raw food shop we go to, I just asked them the other day, like, oh, she is a senior dog, like, is the, like, because you can get senior packs of like mints, it says senior on it, but the lady just said, oh, just boneless as you get on a bit, like, if she's struggling with a poo, reduce the bone content, which I didn't know obviously before asking, so she's doing okay for now. But I do like to give them boneless, in a mixture anyway, just to reduce obviously the bone content, because we do the raw food we feed, it's known for being like high in bone content. So I just like to make sure we're doing bits.
That's another thing, isn't it? Like, they'll say it's 10% bone, but it's like, it's not 10% bone.
Yeah. Like, it's a raw feed. There's so many different brands of raw food as well, though. Like, you can raw feed on a budget, and people don't realize that. Like, one of my friends, when we first met her, she was feeding her dog kibble, I think, and he's a staffy like Kyla with the same style fur, and his fur was gross. And I was like, oh, like, have you tried raw feeding? She was like, oh, I can't afford it. And I was like, it's literally, we pay less than £20 a week to feed 2 dogs on raw food, and you've got 1 dog. And so she was like, oh, like, okay. So she raw feeds, and his fur feels great, and he's a senior dog too, so it's probably doing him the world of good.
Yeah, definitely.
But no, like, it used to cost us £40 a week to feed just Chip, because we were getting higher end raw foods. But then obviously when we got Kyla, and I didn't have a job at the time, so we had to drop down to what we could afford, and we just kind of stuck with it, but adding all the different supplements and stuff now. So it's just doing what's best for you. But I think people do worry about it, but you can do it. I'm here to tell people.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I've actually been working on a bunch of recipes, which I'll be releasing. They might have even been released by the time this podcast goes live.
That's exciting.
They are basically, to be fair, if people want to use them when I release them, they can. That's absolutely fine. This is why I'm doing it. But they are going to be examples of how you can feed a fresh food diet for super cheap. And whether that is, so I'm even going to do one which personally doesn't fall in line with my values, because it has carbohydrates in it. But if people are dead set on feeding a diet which is 50 to 60% carbohydrates, i.e. kibble, then I'm going to show them that they can do a fresh food version of this kibble for less than what they're paying in the supermarket for this highly processed kibble, and they can make it with sort of like 5 or 6 ingredients. The only thing is they'll need to add like a multivitamin tablet in there, which is basically what's in kibble anyway. So even if you can only feed kibble, then make your own and feed it fresh. That's sort of like what I'm going for, because fresh food is alive. It's got all the enzymes in it and everything like that, rather than feeding some kind of like rendered byproduct where you don't even know where it's come from.
They don't even look nice.
No, exactly. So that is something that I've been working on, and it's basically just to try and show people that you don't have to spend a fortune to feed fresh food. And even I've worked it out sort of like with 50% carbs, 30% carbs and 20% carbs, and I think the difference is just like pennies depending on what you use. And this is with stuff from the supermarket as well. So not even just from raw food shops. So it could probably be done even cheaper if you were to buy like a bulk box from a raw food supplier. But so I'm really excited about getting those out into the world, so hopefully more people can see that it's not going to be too expensive.
No, that sounds so exciting.
Right. Well, I think all we've got left to do now is to let people know where to find you should they want to come and have a chat. So everybody, if you're listening and you are interested in joining along with Danielle, Chip and Kyla's story, the place to be obviously is Instagram, because that's where we all are. That's where all the cool people are. And Chip, it's Chip's account, isn't it? I think.
It's like Chip and Kyla, but mainly Chip.
It started off as Chip. So the Instagram handle is Chipgram0161. That's ChipStagram 0161. But I will pop it in the show notes with a direct link straight to their profile if you want to go and follow along. And Danielle, obviously, DMs are always open if you want to have a chat. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. Well, it's been super fun chatting with you tonight. It's been a really great conversation about loads of different things. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground.
I've learned loads.
Yeah. And so have I. I always like to learn about how different people deal with their dogs. And it's sort of like you kind of pick out pieces that you relate to, and it's so comforting to know that everybody's so different, but yet we're all the same, if you know what I mean. It makes perfect sense in this crazy world of canine nutrition. Well, if you ever want to come back onto the show, then just let me know and we can book you in. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And no problem. I will speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another great episode of the My Dog Made Me Do It Naturally podcast. Don't forget to check out the caption for any links discussed here today. And please, if you enjoyed the show, follow along and listen for free on your favourite podcast app. If you have any questions or would like to share your story, feel free to email me at mydogmademedoitnaturally@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Purpose of this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted as advice from a veterinarian or other professional. It does not form a client relationship with me, the host, or any guest speakers, and any information is not intended to and does not diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. And my guests express our own views, thoughts, and opinions as individuals, and the podcast neither endorses or opposes the views, products, or services discussed here. If your pet is ill, always seek advice from your veterinarian. I am not a veterinarian and I do not treat disease or offer medical advice.